Hey everybody, it's Chris Harrison here with Main Place, and today we have another episode of the Main Points with Main Place. Today we have a very special event to me, which is the Farm Progress Show, and we have Matt Jungmann, who is the National Events Director for Farm Progress. So Matt, thank you. Welcome back to Decatur, and welcome to the Main Points.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
Thank you. Glad to have you here. And the Farm Progress Show, a lot of people in Decatur, at this point, they know what happens. They don't know really when it happens, why it happens, or what is it really. So with that, kind of tell us, when is it, what is it, and why is it?
So this year specifically is August 29th, 30th, 31st. It is Tuesday. It's always the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday before Labor Day.
Before Labor Day. Perfect.
And what is it is part of the reason of when is it. It is a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday because it's a work trip for farmers, for the people that grow our food, fiber, and fuel. We were just talking before we went on air here that every industry has its trade show, and for the most part, the trade shows for every industry occur in Vegas or Orlando at some convention center, Anaheim, Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yep. So the trade show for agriculture is every other year in Decatur, Illinois, because we want to have crops to run and do demonstrations and that kind of thing. So rather than have a 4 million square foot trade show in Vegas or Orlando, we have it, and it alternates between Decatur, Illinois, and Boone, Iowa. So it's kind of like the Detroit Auto Show for farming, meaning this is where, at the end of the month here, John Deere, Case IH, New Holland, Kubota, Kloss, all the big players, all the big global corporate players are going to make their product unveilings for the year. So it'll be that raise the curtain moment with new, cool toys.
And you said 4 million square feet in a convention center. How large is the Farm Progress site here in Decatur?
That is 4 million square feet inside the fence, which is the biggest trade show that happens in Vegas is Con Expo, and the Farm Progress Show is bigger. It is the largest by footprint. It is the largest trade show in the country, if not in the world. It's not the largest in the world. The largest one is in Hanover, Germany. But the Farm Progress Show is the largest trade show in the country.
Okay, awesome. So as far as a trade show goes, what are companies unveiling here? What are they bringing to their customer, which are the farmers or agricultural companies?
Well, and there's a big surge of new products being rolled out that kind of got gummed up during COVID. There was just sort of a pause in the ability to do R&D and develop new things, and now a whole bunch of things are coming to the market. And the market is evolving. There's new technologies that are being unveiled. The kind of the big three things for this year's show. Number one is electric vehicles, and there was just an announcement of electric vehicle componentry.
Yep.
So it's kind of cool to see that down the road some of those parts and pieces are going to be on tractors and forklifts and zero-turn mowers, and there's an electric Polaris Ranger. There's just kind of an electric version of things that's coming for everything. Well, a lot of that's going to be unveiled at Farm Progress Show. The second big thing is autonomy, and that's been around for a couple of show cycles now, but we're starting to get more and more competitors in the field of autonomy, meaning tools that in some way or the other operate themselves, whether it's operator assisted, meaning it's kind of an assist for the operator and they're still in the seat, or complete autonomy where the machine is operating without any operator in it at all. It's being remotely controlled by another hand. And then third is the smart sprayer technology, and that's AI, where the sprayer is going through the field and it's actually got cameras that can and technology that can identify the good crop versus the weed and spot spray the weed at 12 miles an hour going through the field, that's groundbreaking kind of technology, where you go out and typically you would mix up 160 acres worth of chemical and go spray 160 acres. Well, if you're just spot spraying and only killing the weeds, I have a firsthand experience where they mixed up 160 acres worth of chemicals, went out and only put down 27 acres worth of it, which is just fascinating. And it's so that's money savings. That's good for the environment. That's just good all the way around.
And better yields too, because some of these chemicals sometimes can be stressful for the crop itself.
Can ding the crop,
yes.
Right? So and maybe do a better job because you can use maybe a little bit more aggressive of a herbicide because you're not blanketing the field with it.
Yep. I told this story off air too, where my dad's sprayer was the home built one, and he had 2 valves he'd reach back and turn on. But it would always be interesting, 4 or 5 days after spraying, we'd drive by and you'd see the burn, on the beans,
cupped beans,
and so how far we've come with both the genetics of the seed and this AI technology. That was even off air, like that got me. So that's really awesome to hear that.
And that's kind of the reason that the exhibits are so elaborate. There's a lot of education involved in it, because when the show started back in 1953, a technological advancement was the difference between a 2-bottom plow and a 3-bottom plow. Well, that's fairly obvious to see what the difference is there. Well, these technologies require a whole lot more learning, and it just takes a lot more to fully understand, especially if you're going to stroke the check that is necessary to you want to spend your time and do your research and talk to the smart people that are trying to sell it to you, and make sure that you fully understand it before you dive off into one of these technologies.
Absolutely. I've spent some time out there too recently, just trying to understand where farming, I knew where it was, but where it is now. But you'll see a corn stalk, and they'll have a cutaway of even the soil to see what the root system would look like on live corn plants. And then in different varieties of the corn plants for whatever seed company it is there. So it really is an immersive experience too. Even if you're not into farming, or just you want to know, or you want to understand, if you like watching Nat Geo or whatever on TV, this is firsthand of what farming is like, and what where our food comes from.
Yeah, this is, if anybody who eats anything is involved in the food chain, well, and that's the end of the food chain. Well, this is kind of the foundational. This is the start of the food chain. All these products are used in a variety of different ways. You mentioned growing the crops out there. That's just kind of an interesting thing. That requires us to pin down their exhibit back in April, so that we go out and mark out where their exhibit is going to be in April, and then they go to work on, and they've been tending what will be their exhibit all year long. And so it's a long process to put on the show.
Yep. So let's talk about that process. I know we're recording here. We're August 2nd or 3rd. We're still several weeks away. You've got teams on site. You've got people on site. Kind of what's happening now. How many people will come, and how many people ultimately will be here?
So the process, the planning takes all year. Like we're already planning. We're already having, every now and then you're having a 2025 conversation when you're standing in Decatur right now working on the 23 show. But we are at that starting point of, we're done planning. We're done with the planning process, and now we're starting on the implementing process. So the first 2 tent companies are in. Almost all of our tents are in the air. The electrician is there. The landscaper's there. The internet folks are there. So the people that are working at the show right now are not company people. There's no John Deere people there or anything like that. It is the people that are putting the foundation in place, so that the electricity is in the right place, there's internet service here, the tent's in the right spot, all the landscaping has been put into place, so that as we get later in the month of August, you start rolling equipment in and you start assembling the displays and that kind of thing. So the infrastructure has started, and it's just kind of a steady ramp up of activity and motion, and it by the time we get to the Monday, the day before the show, it's chaos of, that is the busiest, toughest day of the year, is that day before the show.
Monday.
Opens. Yep.
Because everybody, now they're arriving, or now they want this, and somebody who forgot that, and so there's always something. So, well, I've always enjoyed, on the Tuesday morning, I drive a golf cart to help bring the vendors from the parking lot and I get to take them all the way to their booth. So they're carrying their boxes of brochures and a case of water, bag of ice, and somebody's got a tray of Starbucks too, and it's just like hop on, and that's the finishing touch. Somebody's got to bring the cooler for the waters, and so it's a whole process. So numbers, how many exhibitors, how many booths, streets. We also mentioned, pre-COVID, after COVID, kind of where are we at number-wise there?
So, it's probably important to point out that 2019 is the last time we had a full-size show in Decatur. The 21 show, there was still a lot of COVID. And whether it was companies couldn't get enough inventory to fill their typical lot size,
right,
or there were some European companies who were just mandated that they could not exhibit for their own corporate reasons. That is pretty well in the rearview mirror, and we are back to a full-size, full show. The junior lots are sold out. VIT is just almost sold out, and we have maybe 10 outdoor lots left. And when you're talking about 950 outdoor lots, to have 10 of them left is just not that. It's for all intents and purposes sold out.
Sure.
And so that's 525, 530 exhibitors right now signed up for the show, and that is. We very purposely do not have. We could sell a lot more exhibit space, but we very purposely do not want. And this is just kind of a phrase I use. We don't want hot tubs and salsa makers, right? The state fair is good for all that kind of thing. We are dedicated to the tools, services, and input suppliers that professional agriculturalists need to do their job. So it's kind of an exclusive list to be on the list as an exhibitor at the show.
Sure. And I think as a guest, a visitor too, you don't want to get, walking through the cool fly swatter that has grandma's name on it, or those, the hot tubs and salsas, perfect. I know exactly what you mean.
Yep.
So visitors, how many visitors do you expect?
So on a normal weather year, we would say 160,000. It's kind of hard to capture all of that. We do have gates and we do take admission, but there's so many people that are coming in with 3-day passes and those kind of things that we estimate it, according to the way that the parking lots fill up, it would be about 160,000 over the 3 days of the show.
160,000 people. Wow.
So, and those 160,000 typically are going to come from about 46, 48 states. And typically they're going to come from 35 countries. Now, I will tell you, Terry and Tanya at the CVB, they do a great deal of work. First of all, they host the exhibitor reception on Tuesday night, which is a big help.
Nice.
And then they also handle all of these international visitor requests, which if you can imagine the crazy requests that come into their office, it's just
right.
They're doing a ton of work right now. But anyway, they have sent letters of invitation to countries that they have never worked with before. And Terry likes to have a flag around her exhibit, her international visitors exhibit, from every country that's there. So she's having to order new flags that she's never had in her inventory before to come to the show.
Oh, that's neat.
So that's cool.
That's great to hear that the CVB's, hand in hand engaged with this. Kind of to our next thing, this has been a community project. I mentioned, I was a banker when this first came together, and 4 or 5 banks got together and said, all right, let's put some money in and let's loan some money to help make this happen. So kind of take us back to day one. I mean, when did these conversations really start, and then where did we end up with the first show?
So you have to go back to the 2003 show in Henning, Illinois, which was our 50th anniversary. We had a great day one. And then the second 2 days rained completely out. It started raining and it never stopped raining, and it was a washout. And the exhibitors came to us and said, we can't go to this much work to set up these exhibits and truck all this equipment in and put so much of our emphasis on this event with the risk of it raining out. It's fair. That's fair. We need to stop moving the thing from cornfield to cornfield.
Right.
So our plan was, all right, we need to build permanent sites. At that time, we were rotating Iowa, Illinois, Indiana. It would be very expensive to build 3 sites in 3 states. So let's build a site on the Illinois-Indiana border, and let's build a site in Iowa and rotate between two locations. So we started requesting bids from communities, and Prairie Farmer was based here in Decatur. So, as kind of a nod to Decatur, we kind of didn't really have Decatur at the top of the list, but gave Decatur an opportunity to bid. And we were looking real hard at sites from Lafayette, Danville, Illinois, somewhere right there on that border to build a site.
Yep.
And we planned on building it. We figured over the course of several shows we would build the permanent infrastructure.
Okay.
So the Decatur community came to us and said, we are going to be your host. We will build the site. It will be ready to go year one. And basically Randy Prince and Stu Ellis were not going to fail. They were just going to do whatever it took to get the show here, and they won the bid. And I think it gets forgotten, the work that and the commitment that it took. Richland and them, and I mean the banks and everybody that stepped up and made that happen. We announced that in September of 2004 that we had signed that agreement, and less than a year later, we had broken ground and built the site and had the show the first year in 2005, and that was just staggering.
And staggering considering right now you're planning 2 years ahead.
Right.
You did that in 9-10 months.
Yes. And I was at the time I was living in Champaign, and I was driving over here every day. It was a very long year. My wife was pregnant that year, and
that's usually how it works. Yeah.
So that was a tough year, and so we talk about that, and back in 2004, and David Bricks, our host farmer, his kids were little girls, and now David's a grandfather. And, the way that time has flown since then. But the interesting thing is, when we signed the deal, it was a deal for 10 shows over 20 years. And believe it or not, we are at our 10th show. And if you'd have told me in 2004 that I'd still be doing this, I'd have told you you're crazy. But, it's stuff like smart sprayers, and no day is ever the same, and no show is the same. There's always new and fresh challenges. And so it doesn't feel like I'm running the same show, because the show has evolved so much. Because now that those exhibitors that came to us in 2003 and said, we can't do this anymore, now that they know that they've got a good firm footing, a good solid foundation to build a show site, they go all out to put together such a great exhibit.
Absolutely. I mean, there's grain bins out there. There are buildings year round. There are permanent restrooms and air conditioned restrooms, and the streets and the drainage. I mean, it's a city out there. It's called Progress City, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes. So, well, it's exciting to hear, the history of it and how well it's done, and I'm sure with the community support it will continue. What about, the average Decatur person that works at ADM or works at the hospital or something? They want to come see the Farm Progress Show. What do they do?
Well, they're welcome to come out. I mean, it is a really cool thing that happens in Decatur. And if you're not involved in agriculture, you don't really know what a big deal it is. But for the ag industry to have this happening in your community, there will be global news made at the show. There will be press releases that go out with the byline Decatur, Illinois, with product unveilings and news, and governmental officials. Typically the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture is there, and so it's a big event happening. And just to be part of that big deal that's happening is pretty cool. If you're any kind of an outdoors person, there's a lot of crossover, because you get Chevy, Ford, Dodge, you get Polaris, you get a lot of outdoors type things that would be of interest, or there's tons of everybody that makes a lawnmower is there, and those kind of things.
Yeah. So to somebody that does want to go, though, traffic can be a little hairy. Especially those first few early hours anyway. I'm sure that the newspaper will probably come out with, like the flyer of kind of a map to get in and everything. Tickets, I assume, could be bought online.
They can be bought online, farmprogressshow.com. You can go in and surf the map and buy tickets in advance at a discount. Perfect. I would say, if you just want to check it out and you maybe don't want to so for some reason, and I cannot tell you why, however many people we're going to get at the Farm Progress Show, 50% of them will be there on Wednesday. Wednesday, for some reason, is always the biggest day, and half the crowd is there, and it's packed, and you can't get through the thing. And then 30% of them will be there on Tuesday, and 20% of them will be there on Thursday. So if you want to come to the show and just check it out and just walk around for a few hours and take a look at this thing, Thursday is your day. It is perfect. That's when I tell my friends and family to come to the show, because it's the same show. We run all the same demos. There's nothing different, but just very few people come on Thursday. So come on out Thursday.
Awesome. Very good. Okay. Anything else to add, Matt?
This is a Decatur podcast, and I've named some names and I've touched on a few people, but I shouldn't even name names, because there's so many people that make this thing happen. The volunteer groups, driving a shuttle like you do, and info booths and food stands and all the people that it takes to do this. I'm not out personally greeting all these visitors. The volunteers are. And so I genuinely appreciate all the partnerships in this community that it takes for the volunteers to come out like they do, and the law enforcement and EMS and fire department, and I will miss people, Richland Community College, everybody in the community that has embraced this event. I genuinely appreciate the last 19 years of working together.
Great. Well, thank you. And as a Decaturite, and business person, it is a phenomenal event. I mean, everyone that's involved, the exposure it brings, just the newness factor, the fact that we're talking about EV and AI sprayers. I mean, that still gets me. So that's awesome and exciting. And I hope Decatur will continue to embrace it. And I know that involves getting the youth involved. We talked about school buses. We're going to see a parade of 100 school buses coming through, loaded with FFA kids or just ag kids. And I know in the past, Decatur Public Schools has, made an effort to get, some of their junior high kids into the programs too. I know my kids, before they were part of being able to come out of school to go to it, I took my son out of school, and I said, for one day, I've never been a perfect attendance guy anyway, but I said, for one day, you're going to learn so much more, and it's just a great experience. So for, Decatur people out there, take advantage of this. There's a lot you can learn from this. So Matt, thank you very much. Appreciate you having you, and look forward to a great show here in Decatur.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. Thank you. To check out past or future Main Points, find us at YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts.